Shear Shine, and you're watching Grow Daily.
What inspired you to become self-employed and start your own business?
It's kind of a long journey, to be honest. I mean, I've always had a passion for business, but I've also had a passion for music and creative side as well. And I find that there's a lot of similarities between being a musician and being self-employed. Like, you have to have a lot of the same skill sets to do both. For me, after uni, I kind of went into self-employment initially as a teacher, music teacher. And from doing that, it just builds up your business acumen. And that's when I met my current business partner, who was running another company at the time, helping young people to set up their own businesses, young entrepreneurs to help with their business plans, finance planning, all that kind of stuff. And she was running that, and I got involved with her on that business because I was helping her to do so much. So that's kind of was my introduction into business. And then we was running that company. At the time I was working as well, full time. And what actually happened was I was up for a promotion. Well, no, I was at the end of my contract where I was, and there was opportunities going for promotion to stay on. And with the way that the business was going at the time, I thought, you know what? I'm at a pivotal point where I can take the job, or I can kind of go with what I want to do full, like just put everything into it. And that's kind of what I did. And from then I've kind of been full-time, self-employed, entrepreneur kind of stuff, and just learning every day. And now from that business we set up other businesses, and then from there I set up the barbershop, which we opened in CROYDON a few years ago. And it's kind of, everything is just kind of an evolution of the last thing that I've done. There wasn't like one thing that said I'm going to start a business tomorrow. It's kind of just a gradual learning process. In the media, the perception of black men is not always the most positive, and I wanted to address that. So the ways that I'm kind of addressing that is by enabling black men to look their best, feel their best, be confident in themselves with my products. That's what my services do.
How would you say it's impacted you in your personal life? Like, how do you find like life balance? Do you have a balance, or is it just business for you? Or
for me, there's a fine line, because I love business. Like, I'm passionate about business. So I wake up in the morning, it's the first thing that I start doing. Do you know what I mean? It's not an afterthought. It's not a side hustle. It's not a side thing for me. Do you know what I mean? I love business, and I love growing my company and helping people, etc., etc. So I can very easily become obsessed with what I'm doing and allow it to just take over my everything. So sometimes I have to consciously make that decision and say, today I'm chilling. You know what I mean? And today is just about family and friends, and take those days off. So it can be difficult in that sense, but I think that if you're really serious about your business and what you want to do, you have to make certain sacrifices now, so that in a few years you can reap the benefits of the sacrifice and time that you put into it.
what are some of the things that inspired you on your journey to become an entrepreneur?
I mean, my inspirations, it's changed over time, but in terms of business, I would say I'm inspired by people like Elon Musk and Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. I'm inspired by people who have really changed the way we live. So Bill Gates with Microsoft, I mean, before Microsoft, the world was completely different. You know what I mean? Like, they've changed. Like, they've left a stamp on the world. When they've gone, we can't go backwards. Do you know what I mean? We can't go back to not having computers. We can't go back to not using the internet. They've left an imprint on the world, and to me, that's inspirational. Like, and I think we're seeing it with Elon Musk now, with Tesla, and the hybrid cars, the electric energy, the the power grids that he's building, all of these things, once they're established and once they're set up, we're not going to be able to go backwards from that. We're not. So he's leaving his legacy, and that's something that really inspires me, is leaving a legacy and leaving a mark.
What kind of books would you say you've read that you would say are like very helpful, or what kind of films have really inspired you on your journey? What kind of music or musicians have impacted you in any way?
In terms of books, one of the most eye-opening books is How to Win Friends and Influence People. And the reason for that is because it shows you how much people live inside of their own reality. People are concerned with their own affairs, and one of the examples in the books is that your toothache, when your tooth is hurting, that's the most important thing to you at that time. Your tooth hurting you and killing you is more important than someone starving across the world at that particular moment in time. So people are very in their own worlds with a lot of the way that we think and the way that we the way that it manifests itself in our actions as well. So understanding that, it helps you to understand what makes people tick and how to connect with people and how to relate to people, by understanding that everyone lives inside of their own perception of reality. So that was really eye-opening. And now films, my favourite movie's always been The Matrix. That's always been my favourite film, just because when The Matrix came out, that film just changed the game. You know what I mean? That film is like, I remember watching it, I think I was in like college or something, and I was like, this is just, what if we are in The Matrix? Like, it's just, you know what I mean? It's one of those like, those eye-opening films that made you think, wow, like, what is this reality? Like, how do we know that this reality is reality? Do you know what I mean? It's one of those type of films, and I really love those kind of things that make you think. And in terms of music, I've always been into 90s R&B. Always loved 90s R&B, so that's like in my soul. Do you know what I mean? 90s R&B. Grew up on grime, and grime is, I think, like everyone, if you're from London, in the UK, even outside of London, we all grew up on grime, like Channel AKA and all that stuff. So that's also had a big impact on me, is the UK music industry as a whole, watching it from birth to growing into what it is now, and seeing particular artists, how they've grown and evolved over time, and learning from them, learning from the success stories, like, you know, So Solid, Craig David, the people who have really done it the right way, do you know what I mean? And yeah, those are my big influences, I'd say, in that respect.
In terms of your day-to-day routine, could you just give us a run through your day-to-day routine and share some of the things that you think is vital?
So what I like to do is the night before make a to-do list of the things that essentially need to be done, and I will have my top 3 things for the day. So I make my top 3 things for today, and then the rest of the list is kind of a if I have time type of thing. So I wake up, I usually get up about 7 and eat. This week I've actually, I've started meditating. So this week I've actually started to, I want to give it a go and see if I notice any difference. Because I want to meditate, I want to just be focused when I get behind the desk, and I've been doing a lot of reading and studying on the benefits of meditation and how it can help to reprogram your subconscious and just achieve relaxation and pure focus. So I started doing that this week. Actually, I started doing that, so we'll see how that goes. I allocate a time in the day that I go on social media, because I found that I was spending too much time doing a little bit here, checking my phone, doing a little bit there, replying to a WhatsApp, doing a little bit here, do you know what I mean? And it was messing with my routine. So what I've started to do is allocate like an hour, do you know what I mean, where I will do everything that I need to do on social media.
for you personally, like what are some of the challenges that you personally have had to face?
For me, one of the biggest challenges that I faced was initially getting started, especially with the shop, because it was a physical premises. So I had a lot of, because it was my first physical premises that I had to deal with a lot with landlords and agencies, and I got rejected from a lot of the prime locations that I originally wanted, where I really wanted to set up my business to begin with. And it was really difficult. And also in the first year of opening the barbershop was really difficult as well, because the place that I eventually acquired wasn't the original place that I wanted. So it's kind of one of them ones where you need to just get started with what you can. And that's one thing as well. Sometimes we want everything to be perfect, but sometimes we have to kind of just play with the hand that we've got and just get your foot in. So that's what I had to do. And so the first year was really difficult. It was really difficult. I wouldn't say it was a failure, but it was definitely a challenge, because we didn't have we hadn't built a reputation yet at that point. No one knew who he was, and as I don't know if you'll know, if you're a female, but as most men know, they're loyal to their barbers. So building up that reputation and getting people to give us a go and test us out was very difficult. It was a huge challenge. Another challenge was I wasn't a barber myself. That wasn't my background at the time. I didn't know how to cut hair. And finding the vision that I had for Shear and Shine, I was finding it difficult to find the right people that embodied that. So I had to actually learn how to barber myself, and I got my cousin, I noticed he always had the freshest trim. Like, his trim was always immaculate, and I was like, who cuts your hair? I need to meet the guy who cuts your hair. So I met him and got him to basically train me and teach me how it works. And then on top of that, I went to Wall, the company that makes the clippers, and I did a few courses with them as well, so that I could know not just how to cut hair, but also know the science behind it as well. And of course, like, read books, YouTube videos, everything. So that was probably my biggest challenge, to be fair, because it's a skill that I had to acquire under a lot of pressure and quickly, and I had to get very good very quick. So that was probably one of my biggest challenges.
What advice do you have for people trying to get into the beauty industry, the black beauty industry?
Just know that it's you have to know who you're targeting, because if a white guy was, if he was a bank, and someone comes to you to try and get money from you, and you say, who are you targeting? And they say white people. You'd be like, well, who? Do you know what I mean? It's the same with black people. A lot of the times we think, well, who are we targeting? Yeah, black people, innit? But there's so many different types of black people. So you have to really know, who are you focused on? Like, who are you trying to speak to? Everything that your company does has to speak to the type of person that you're targeting. It sounds obvious, but a lot of people overlook that when it comes to branding. So that has to reflect in everything that you do as a business. And you also need to understand that people are not gonna, because there's a movement with black-owned businesses at the moment, and there's a lot of black-owned businesses that are coming up. But being a black-owned business is not enough. You have to really provide a quality service to your customers. You know what I mean? People are not gonna support you just because you're black. You have to also think, what's the value that I'm giving that deserves taking this person's money? Mm-hmm. So that needs to be reflected in your customer service, in your customer care, in how much attention and care you put into your website, into all of your communications. It needs to be something across the board. Don't treat your business like a hustle. Treat your business like a business. Treat your business like this is what I want to do. I want to build a company, and when you go into it with the foresight that you're gonna have challenges and you're gonna have obstacles, and it's not gonna be easy. Because a lot of people go into it with the mentality, they go into it with the wrong mentality, and mentality is like the key number one thing, you know what I mean? Like, you have to have the right mentality. You have to know that things are not gonna be easy, it's gonna be very difficult, but this is not a hustle. Because if you go into it thinking this is a hustle, if a hustle's not working after 6 months, what are you gonna do? You're gonna drop it out, you know what I mean? Find a new hustle. But if you go into it thinking, I'm trying to build a company, I'm trying to leave a mark, leave a legacy, do something great. It's gonna take time, it's gonna take work, it's gonna take a lot of effort. You know, Coca-Cola sold like 10 bottles in their first year of trading, in their whole year. You know what I mean? Look where they are now. So yeah, you just have to, I'll say tenacity is the number one thing, and mindset is the number one thing. We've left the barbershop behind, but only because we want to work with other barbershops now. We want to really get Shear Shine, our product side of things. We're more focused on the product, and like I said, it's about, we want all black men to look and feel their best. So the best way that I can achieve that is by getting Shear Shine into all the barbershops, and not competing with other barbershops, but working with all of the other barbershops.
So we don't talk about your business, and I ask who you are as a person. Who are you?
I'd say I'm just a humble person. It's hard, no one's ever asked me that before. I'm just a humble person trying to leave a mark, trying to do something great, trying to leave a legacy, trying to provide for my daughter, trying to provide for the next generations, trying to show young people that there's more opportunities out there, that there's other things that we can do. And other than that, I'm just a big nerd. Like, I'll just be at home watching anime, or I'll just be watching anime or playing Xbox, or just chilling. Like, I'm a very chilled, like, relaxed guy.
Do you believe in God, or do you have a faith, or has there been any kind of spiritual guidance in your life that's helped you to date?
Religion is something that I don't really go into because people feel so passionately about it. My mum was Christian, so I grew up in the church. My personal beliefs is that no one knows. I don't believe anyone knows 100%. That's why it's called belief, because no one's been there and come back and has footage or do you know what I mean? Like, so for me, I believe that there's something greater than us. I believe that there is a source, and I believe that how can I describe it without sounding too crazy?
Go for it. You're on the right platform.
So, I'll give you an example. So if a Christian man prays, he's tapping into that source. He calls it God. Another man can pray, he's tapping into that source. He calls it Allah. Another man prays, he's tapping into, do you know what I mean? But I believe, I could be completely wrong, but I believe there's a source, and we tap into that source. And with our human brains, we make sense of that source, and we call it whatever we call it, because we have limited understanding. We have limited abilities to understand. And the smarter you get, the more you realize we don't know anything. So it's like you could have a monkey, and you could spend that monkey's entire life trying to teach it Shakespeare. The monkey doesn't have the ability to learn Shakespeare. Like, his brain doesn't have the functionality to comprehend above a certain level. So us as humans, there's certain things in the universe that we just can't understand. And I think that that's one of them. I think we can't possibly understand some of the things that are out there. It's beyond our grasp. So that's why no one can really, at this time, convince me of one true thing. I just believe that we're all part of one. I believe that we're all part of one consciousness. I believe that we're all part of the universe. Okay, I need to ask. You asked me some good questions, so I need to gather my thoughts.
That's right, take your time.
Okay, so there's a scientist, astrophysicist actually, called Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he discusses in great length, in great detail, the universe and how the stars that make up the sun, that make up the earth, the star systems that we all come from. I can't explain it very well, but we are all part of one whole. If you believe in, I'll say I wouldn't necessarily believe in the Big Bang, because it's just, like I said, it's just a theory. But there are certain principles that we see in the universe that can be seen, tested, measured. They're facts. When star systems explode, they come together, they form new systems, those systems form planets, those planets form life. So with that information, we know that we are all part of one connected universe. So when I kind of look to, when I'm like in my darkest hour or I need kind of guidance, I kind of try my best to put things into perspective. And for me, that perspective is that whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And we're always going to have challenges. But everything has its time and everything passes. So there was one book that I read, I can't remember the name of the book, but it says, whenever you're facing issues and challenges, just say these 4 words to yourself: this too shall pass. And it's very true. Like, if you think of whenever you've been in your darkest hour, this too shall pass, and it has passed. We have to get through it because there's no other alternative but to get through it. So we have to just deal with whatever issues that come our way. It sounds cliche or whatever, but it's what it is. It's facts. Like, you have to evolve or die. Like, you have to constantly be sharpening your skill set because the world is changing, and we have the internet, so the world is changing rapidly. So if you're not continually developing yourself, you'll go out of business. You could be a huge company, you could be a Blockbusters, and still go out of business when Netflix comes. Do you know what I mean? If you don't keep up to date with what's going on. I was in a boardroom the other day, and it's like everyone in that room had 20, 30 years experience in business. And it's like, I'm just sitting there like, wow, do you know what I mean? Like, this is crazy. But it just made me think, the more you know, the less you know. The more you realize you don't know nothing. And it just makes you think, I've got so much to learn. So as much as some people might come to me for advice and I'll give all this advice, I'm still at like stage 2, do you know what I mean? There's still like 10 stages beyond where I am right now. And I'm learning every day and I'm growing every day. So it's just something you have to constantly be aware of.
What would you say your principles are to growing daily? Obviously you mentioned that. What would you say if you had to pinpoint 3 main principles or main actions or main philosophies you have on a daily basis that evolve you as a person? What would you say they are?
I'd say the number 1 philosophy to grow as a person is to become your own teacher. You have to kind of really be active in your own learning and your own development. You have to really kind of allocate time in your day, like an hour a day, to just read and study. Half of a large chunk of being an entrepreneur is just figuring things out. Do you know what I mean? A lot of it is just figuring things out and problem solving. And reading books is like having a mentor, because you got to remember the person who wrote this book usually is someone who's been there and done it. Someone who's been there, done it, made their millions, and now they're writing a book. So if you don't have access to a physical mentor, the next best thing is to just read books and read the information, read books, follow blogs, and utilize the internet for more than just play. Like, the internet has more than, it has more functions than just socializing. A lot of people use the internet for their downtime, do you know what I mean, to kind of relax. They go on Facebook and relax, but you can use Facebook and YouTube as an active tool to learn as well. I've learned so much from YouTube. It's crazy, the amount of information that's there for free.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And if you was, let's say you was having a conversation right now with Aaron Wallace when he was 16, 17, 18 years old, what advice would you give him?
Tell him to focus, man. Tell him to focus. Tell him to focus on one path. Like, don't try and be hit everywhere, do you know what I mean? Don't try and do everything. Don't try and spin all the plates at once. Like, just focus on what's important and where you want to leave your mark. Yeah. And don't get distracted. Like, eliminate distractions as well. I would say that's a huge one. Eliminate distractions, because there's so many things that can distract you easily. Like I said, I put things into a larger perspective. So a lot of the things like being flashy and all this and that, in the grand scheme of things, we all end up in the same place. You know what I mean? So in the grand scheme of things, you just want to be remembered as a humble guy who looked after his family, who looked out for his people. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's it. Come on.